So just picking up on a bit of the discussion is, if you were to write Maverick Effect 10 years into the future, what would that consist of?
Maverick Effect Square. No, actually, I'm more focused right now, frankly. There's a chapter 14 in the book where I've identified structural problems of India. While we may get technology part coming in well, but we need to solve the structural issues. For example, simple example, we have the wild nexus of Lala, Neta, Jola, Danda. That nexus is corrupt, so corrupt, that it's like an invisible bus. He's killing the millions of people, including all of you, your aspirations. That has to be solved. So like that, I've identified structural problems of India are going forward. That also has to go in parallel. So I want to see conversation going in each one of that. So that's my first objective. And the second objective, as he talked about, that this Maverick Effect has a potential to change 8 billion people. So I want to explore that. So is it possible, doable, what is to be done, and how is to be done? So like in Bombay, in the Indian Merchants Chamber, they have introduced this year, they have annual Digital Innovation Award. They've introduced Maverick Effect Award this year. So it will help all the associations to now look at the Maverick Effect as a model and see how they can replicate, customize, personalize that recipe and then build their own industries. So that's the goal right now, is to promote those two models.
Sameer is a deeply passionate business leader with over 3 decades of overall industry experience in technology, finance, business operations, talent management, and people development. Sameer is a persistent veteran and the company's roles of Chief People Officer and Chief of Operations. As an active member of entrepreneurship and social community, Sameer was responsible for hosting the TiECon in Nagpur for many years and was a co-founder of the TiE Nagpur chapter. Sameer is actively involved in various organizations like Rotary International, Vidarbha Association of Software Exporters, NASSCOM at Nagpur, and is often invited to speak on entrepreneurship, workforce management, and business leadership. Now, the best part about this is that he loves to play cricket, he loves to read, and he's a movie buff. Let's have a huge round of applause for Sameer. So now going on to our author. Harish Mehta is a Mumbai-based author whose book, The Maverick Effect, has received commendations from the powerhouses of India's IT sector. He completed his graduation from Pune and his master's from Brooklyn Polytechnic University, New York, and is presently the first chairman of NASSCOM and the founder of the Onward Group. He has had a broad and impactful career spanning over 40 years in various sectors, and his involvement with NASSCOM has played a significant role in shaping India's IT sector. Through his association with TiE, Harish is actively involved in fostering entrepreneurship and mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs. He has also served as an expert advisor to the Small Industries Development Bank of India, showcasing his enthusiasm in supporting small and medium-sized enterprises. So let's have a huge round of applause, everybody. Without any further delay, let's dive into the conversation, and I invite you to the stage.
I should thank VLF and Arushi for hosting this session and giving me an opportunity to moderate a session of have a conversation with Harish Bhai. And Harish Bhai, thank you for accepting this thing. For anybody who has been part of the IT industry and who has seen that IT industry grow for a year, both not only your individual contribution, whether it's the onward technologies in those times to whatever we have heard of NASSCOM, I think you are one of those lightning rods which has really ensured that the industry really grows here. So thank you for this. Without much ado, I will directly deep into the session. But I think because this is your first time in Nagpur in that respect and this thing, I think it will be good for the audience to hear quickly a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey before we deep dive into questions on the book which you have written, why you wrote the book and other things. So maybe a quick drive onto your own entrepreneurial journey, because we certainly want to inspire people here.
Sameer, if you ask me quick, it's not going to happen. So once I get into it, you'll have to stop me whenever you feel it is going beyond. So to talk about my entrepreneurial journey, we need to go back to, I used to live in USA. I was, as she said, master's in computer science. Couldn't find a job in hardware, which was my specialty. Ended up as a programmer with a traveler's insurance company, writing programs in COBOL. In those days, writing COBOL programs, meaning you can even teach a monkey to write a program in 7 days. You can train the monkey. But here is a computer science person doing programming work because that was the only job available. Anyway, then I grew and became a database manager. My wife also had a great job. We both had a fantastic jobs in USA. We tried our best to we can say integrate ourselves with American life, American society. We tried a number of things, didn't work out. And we realized this is not the place where I can grow into. There used to be a saying in USA that beyond vice president's level in a corporation, you have to be a WASP. WASP meaning white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Then only you'll go promote beyond that. So we Indians would stop at the vice VP level. Anyway, so we decided to come back to India. And frankly, it was not कि मिट्टी मुझे बुला रही है or any of that sort. Very simple that we want to stay with the family and go back. So we came back to India. Now, it just turned out that I thought I'll join my dad's business. Being a Gujarati, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But then I realized that he had a huge debt. And he was in movie distribution business, Hindi movie. So I thought, let me take a dive into it. And I realized like I had to go and meet one Mrs. Kardar, who owned the rights of a movie. And she was 70 plus and had to negotiate for 5,000 rupees with her. I said, hey, she's like my grandmother. How am I going to negotiate? I said, this is not the business for me to be in. Then my father-in-law invited me, he said, why don't you join my business? Because they used to manufacture, and they still do, two-wheeler parts, like spokes. So he said, for the spoke, there is a nipple at the end. Yes. And why don't you manufacture those nipples? I'll buy 100% production. So you focus on the production side of it. I said, great. So he took me to, in Mumbai, a place called Kanjor Marg. I don't know, any one of you know. In those days, galas in that Kanjor Marg were most unhygienic. The labor conditions were extremely poor. And I said, I am not, this computer science person hasn't come back to India to work in this gala. So this is not the business I want to be in. Then I met my cousin. He said, Harish, go back. He said, take the ticket tomorrow, go back to USA. So when we left USA, everyone had said, you'll be back in 3 months. When we came to India, everyone said, why have you come? I mean, given a land of paradise, honey and money, and trying to settle down in India. So at that time, my cousin said that you are a straight person. I know you will not do anything wrong. In India, your competitor either will be doing customs chori, income tax chori, excise duty chori. When you do not know the input cost of your competitor's product, how are you going to survive? Right. So very, I would say, profound message to me. And that's where I decided to, even though technology, the word was not known in the country, I jumped into tech business, yes, hoping that you cannot bribe a jump instruction. And that's how I started my entrepreneurial journey, where we imported and I was a database manager in USA, and sitting in a cubicle in Mumbai, I could do exactly what I was doing as a manager. All I needed was a communication pipe, having access to those IBM mainframes and those databases, and I can do the same work. And the labor arbitrage benefit at that time was 15 times. So benefit was very clear. Yeah. So I said, this is the business to be in. And that's how I entered the software business.
Fantastic. And from there, I can tell you, the people who have been tracking this business, I think his whole journey from data management to actually software is very, very intriguing. Of course, it's part of his biography, autobiographical plus a story of NAS come together. But let's get into the more interesting part of this book. First is, of course, you have called the book The Maverick Effect. So what was your inspiration to really write a book like The Maverick Effect today? Because it's just 2 years which you have written this book back, and this IT revolution is what, about 30, 35 years old, or maybe 40 nearly today.
See, I entered the software business in the early 80s. And In those days, bureaucrats didn't know what is software. There was not a single definition of software anywhere. The Reserve Bank will have one interpretation, finance ministry or income tax will have another definition, and so forth. And rules of hardware were applied to an intangible software. Just to give an example, I would export my software doing a project work for a company. The custom officer would ask me that, what are you exporting? I said, software work. So give me a sample. Now what do you give him? 10,000 lines of code which I have done? He said, no, I don't want all this paper. The floppy on which you are sending the software, give me a copy of that floppy. I said, fine. So I gave a copy of the floppy. And the first thing he did was to staple the floppy on the file. So that was his knowledge of software. If you look at Reserve Bank, if I go to US, having my trip, let's say London, Boston, and back, and for some reason, I change my itinerary because the prospect says, change the program. So I go to Boston first, and then London come, and then come back to India. Within 1 week, Reserve Bank will issue a notice, summon me. You go there as a guilty. And he says, why did you change your itinerary? I said, this is what happened. He said, what are you exporting? We talked about software. What is software? I don't know, you have gone for your marketing vacation, you are just bluffing and saying it. When you go to income tax department, when you claim expenses for your marketing, he will not allow. Again, we'll say the same thing. Okay, you are doing... So anyway, so that was the environment. They didn't know what software is. Plus, we had scientists running the technology industry in those days. So they wanted all of us to focus on computer hardware industry and software product industry. Now, I being in the software services, because which is what I started, and I saw hundreds of regulations choking the industry, but the total potential as per IDG report in those days was $300 billion. And we were hardly another thing. So we could see the outsourcing potential. But we need to fix all the other issues in between. So, and in software product business also, I had tried, and I had failed miserably. And I realized 18 problems, which I've listed in the book, what the challenges were in the product game in those days. So I said, product is not relevant for India, from my perspective, and many others who were part of it. Hardware was anyway out of question for us. So, and services, we could see that potential. But then there were hundreds of regulations sort of choking it. And I'm going one step further, beyond, and I'm first telling you how we started NASSCOM, then I'll come to the book.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So then we said, here is a potential, here is opportunity, and we need to change the mindset of the bureaucrats. Of course, we were known as profit was a dirty word, it was a socialistic license Raj, and it's a very different atmosphere at that point in time. I went around the country, met Nandan and other entrepreneurs in Bangalore, Ramani and others in Chennai, Saurabh and others in Delhi, and everyone had the same problem. So Ashank and we were in Mumbai, and we said we must form an association. And that's how we started NASSCOM. Now when we started NASSCOM, we had very different, maybe we were young, that's why we took that risk in those days. We say certain ground rules we came up with. So one ground rule was we'll build NASSCOM as and we had studied at that time CII, FICCI, IMC, Lions, Rotary, all other associations. We had brought their constitutions, we studied that also. Many of us had experiences with working with those associations. We wrote down do's and don'ts, likes, not don'ts, all that. Like an engineer who would do, you would do your project report. We apply similar technique while forming NASSCOM. So one thing was very clear, we have to build trust amongst each other. We have to build trust between us and the policymakers. We have to create an environment where NASSCOM emerges as an independent, neutral, transparent platform, trustworthy platform. And so we took number of decisions at that time, and many evolved over a time. So simple things like we will not bribe, in spite of hundreds of regulations choking it, we will not bribe for any policy change. We will not, this is not going to be a parking place for anyone. So every position within NASSCOM will have a time bomb built into it. NASSCOM will not pay for anyone's expenses in terms of, in spite of doing for NASSCOM's work also, it will not pay for it. And that's how, and then there are many such stories will come to how we build trust between us and the government and whatnot. But that foundation that we built, in my view, ended up changing India. 5 years back, when I was looking around, and I was talking about how IT industry has changed India, how NASSCOM has changed IT industry, except few friends in the IT industry, nobody would believe. My daughter-in-law said, Dad, you are saying all this, but who is believing you? And I was very strong in terms of saying it is IT industry changed India, and it is NASSCOM that changed India. And there is a secret sauce behind the NASSCOM, which people don't know. So at that time I looked at, called many economists in Delhi, what do you think, how India changed? So somebody said 91 reforms. I said, but reforms are a piece of paper. How can they change India? Someone said, smartphone. I said, how are you importing smartphones? Who is paying for the smartphones? And that still came just now. Today, India is emerged as the fifth largest economy, global tech powerhouse. How did that happen? It was not by accident or by luck, in my view. And nobody could give me the reason why India has changed. So I bought books from the public sector, senior officers, RBI governors. You read any of those books published in those years. Yes. Anyway, first thing I would look at the index. Is there a word technology somewhere in the book? Is there a word NASSCOM anywhere? None, nowhere. Literally nowhere. I said, my God, here are the senior bureaucrats of the people running the country, politicians, and nobody is talking about the contribution of technology industry. So that was the sort of an inspiration for me to write the book. And that's how I said, now to write the book again, I had to do you can say, as good job as possible. Right. So I remember reading one article by one Gujarati author. He said, if you're going to, first of all, to make the book interesting, you should bring in personal biography in it, autobiography in it. Otherwise, the book will not be interesting. Then he said, you have to assume you're walking naked on the street when you write it. Otherwise, what will happen is only your brother, sister, and cousins will read the book. No one else will read the book. So it hit me. I said, it's very true that a book has to be very as close to reality. Nobody remembers what happened 35 years back. But still, whatever, and I have a habit of writing my personal notes, so which helped me construct the story, but still, a lot of details are needed. So then, of course, luckily, most of the people who were there in the beginning of NASSCOM, before NASSCOM, and today, alive. So after I wrote the first draft, I sent a copy to everybody. I said, please give me all your comments. So I incorporated whatever their collections were in the book. And then finally, I gave the book to some of our few critics of NASSCOM also. I said, I want your views also. Okay. I don't want to have a controversy after the book is published. So you tell me what you don't agree with. And some of them, I ended up getting some 30, 35 suggestions from the critics of NASSCOM. And then, of course, I put my research team on the job to figure out exactly what happened, when, how, and what I believe was the real story, which is very important, which may not have agreed with the critics, yes, but I had a full data to back it up. And which is what happened also. Afterward, people asked me, and I would send them those research articles or economics articles and whatnot, and say, here is what it says, and so on and so forth. So, and that's how this book came out, as it took birth, let's say, from that perspective.
No, fantastic. I think data, like we always say, data stays at the end of the day. And if data speaks the truth, nobody can really dispute it. And completely came out. So in your book, you have spoken about the liberalization of the IT industry, the bureaucratic challenges you faced, especially how you had to change the mindset of the bureaucrats. Some bureaucrats, I remember somewhere in the book where you have said, when you went to one of the association, they said, oh, if this bureaucrat is giving you trouble, I'll get him transferred. But you chose not that path, but actually to change the whole bureaucratic mindset. So what were your challenges which you faced? And any bureaucrat you would like to call out? Of course, you have called out a few names. Leave it to you to call out. Whom you believe really was from a bureaucrat side who helped us change this industry along with the IT mavericks which you are a part of?
See, when we studied that, I was part of CII also, and FICCI and others, and I had seen how they were working. I mean, one is the number of things inside, but a couple of points I just, for your question perspective, the bureaucrats would tell us, the policymakers, okay, let's say CII gives a proposal X to the government as a recommendation of policy change. After a week or 10 days, another group of industrialists would go and tell a different story to the bureaucrats. So they're getting confused. And this was true with almost every association. It did not be only one or two. So people had their own personal fiefdom in terms of trying to drive the policies, changes and whatnot. So we decided we don't want that to happen to us. So they were very clear. Now, how do you do that? So one decision we took was we should represent 80% top line of the industry. That was right at the beginning.
Correct. Now,
Mr. Kohli of TCS was not agreeing to join NASCOM. Now, they had 70% market share. So without Tatas and Tata Boros, who were we? Small local association with no national impact. So it was very clear in our mind that we cannot form NASCOM without their support.
Without TCS on
Without
board.
TCS. It took us 6 months of efforts to carry Mr. Kohli. He agreed that let's go ahead and form NASCOM.
Yeah.
And he appointed Dr. Nirmal Jain as a person to represent TCS at NASCOM. Now you talked about some some industrialist saying it. Yeah. So that industrialist was from an association called MATE. MATE was Manufacturers Association representing both hardware and software. And Kohli Saab was the chair of the software of MATE.
Yeah.
So when other industrialists or members of MATE came to know that we want to start a software association, so one of them called me and he said, आपको क्यों जाना है? कौन सा ऑफिसर आपको हैरान कर रहा है? हम उन्हें ट्रांसफर करा देंगे. So that was their way of working.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we decided, no, we will build trust between us and the policy makers. Now to do that, number of things happened.
Yeah.
So first of all, among us, people were not communicating because they're all fierce competitors, whether TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Mastech, all of them competing. So nobody were opening up in our own group.
Correct.
Because they were scared. Small industry, by mistake you talk about your problem and the customer name comes out, others will go out and go after that customer and all that. So there were lots of imaginary fears. Plus, none of us knew how to communicate at an aggregate level. Okay, your problem, but how do you generalize and then communicate? We are learning all that. So we have to build trust. And then there are a number of stories how we build trust amongst each other. Once that happened, we say, how do we build trust between us and the policymakers? So first thing we decided was our council meetings, anywhere in the country, from any bureaucrat, city level, state level, central level, is most welcome to attend our meetings without invitation. So they said, without invitation? We said, yes. So they were a bit surprised. Okay, here is an industry association, either they are stupid, calling us right in their own area, telling us about what their problems are. We say, we want you to know our problems. Then only you can solve. If you don't trust us, and if you don't listen to our problem, who is going to solve it? Very simple, building the trust. So that's how we started. And then it happened that when Mr. Vittal came in, you had talked about.
Yes, and Vittal, whom I'm sure a lot of people would have heard about.
DOE, he was like God to our industry as a DOE secretary, because in those days, even if you want to import one part for your computer, you require an import license from the DOE. So if you are not in their good books, you will not get your license and your business model will completely go haywire. So they were like God to us. So when Mr. Vittal came as a DOE secretary, and of course was the strongest supporter of NASCOM, but in the beginning, when we met him, and he called a meeting of all the associations, hardware, software, electronics, we had decided by planning, we will not attend. So now next day we asked.
And I'm sure he would be offended.
Exactly, absolutely. He was so upset. He said, who are these kids not coming to? But we asked for a meeting. We got a meeting after a week to meet him. Then we explained to him, we had 15 examples of saying how the physical world is impacting intangible world. All these rules need to be changed. I say, if we come as a part of hardware industry, you will brand us as a hardware only. You will not give any special treatment to software that is required. He got the message. And he was very proactively started supporting us. So then he said, give me he said, what are your challenges? So we had a list of 100 plus changes to be done in the various policies. He said, give me top 3. Again, we had pre-planned. We had the guts to tell him, no sir, we'll not give you 3 things. We only want 1 thing from you. He said, 1 thing? What is it? There was a nodal agency. In those days, any change regarding software has to be routed through them. Any change in the entire government. So we told him, okay, wherever you make a change where the word software appears, you will consult us. He says, only consult you and not accept your recommendation. We said, yes. You just give us an opportunity to express ourselves. At that time also some officer argued. He said, this is our sovereign right to decide the policy. Who are these kids to have business people trying to tell us to listen to them before we make the change? We tell them, listen, they're only saying change. I mean, they're saying just listen to them. Anyway, you don't know what is software. So it is, you will educate yourself about it. And that's how we started. So what is it? Then the first problem was, one of the problem was that we needed software export benefit, which was given to other industries. But we were given only for 1 year. We wanted it to be continued. So we said, that's one of our requests. So, because in 1 year planning, you can't do anything, because by the time you know the benefit, you start preparing a proposal, go to the customer, that itself 6 to 9 months process. By the time it's 2-3 years, 2-3 years of process before the benefit starts coming. And with the 1 year, there's a time bomb. Nobody would assume that also is available to you. So he came back after, I don't know, month or 2. Okay, he said that, okay, government has agreed to extend your export benefit, provided you do $400 million of exports this year. We were 150 at that time. So we had a meeting internally. We all realized we can't do more than 180. It's just not possible. Sure. So, and at that time I was the chairperson of NASSCOM. I went back to him. I said, sir, we can't do it. You don't want the benefit. And I said, we want the benefit, but we don't want to cheat you. We don't want to mislead you. He said, well, here is a made proposal which says they can do it. Here is Engineering Software Export Promotion Council report. They can do it. Why can't you do it? So I told, sir, I do not know which software companies they're representing. Here is my list of software companies, which was 80% top line, which included Tatas and everybody. So they are saying they can't do it. If they have software companies who can do it, please go ahead and do that. Yes. We have no issue on that. He realized that this bunch of people are different. They can be trusted. And then, of course, the whole process started of, we built that trustworthy environment between us and the government, and it still continues that way. Today, every NASSCOM officers and NASSCOM members all over in terms of helping various policy makings, and again, different departments. And there were many officers, not only Mr. Vittal, like Mr. Singhal was there, then Mr. Gopalaswamy, many such officers who were really proactively supporting the industry.
No, I think this is something which I think we should all take away. A lot of people have an issue with the government saying that thing, but there are some phenomenal officers in the government which really support the industry and understand industry challenges. And this is a certainly good example. So one of the roles these Mavericks as those time which created, and I think was really creating brand India. Because today, we may be hearing about other industries, but there was a time when you went to the US, the only brand India was represented by these bunch of IT companies there. So really want to talk about what really creation of Bad India meant to you and how you saw it as one of the most important things to really hold on to, especially given some of the challenges which the industry went through in different times.
The many challenges with the brand India. First one was, I would like to say, when we go and meet a prospect, say in Chicago, argument say, he would look at us as a thief. See, in India, we believe in right to copy, not in copyright, in general. And that was very prevalent, very extensive in those days. Pirated music, pirated movies, was so, prevalent, as a normal way of doing it. But the other impact to us was, prospects were worried, if I give part my data programs to you, tomorrow I'll go and sell it to my competitor.
Correct.
So we need to solve this problem of brand India. Okay, we are pirated world of all that. So then we decided we would like to change the Copyright Act of India, where there was word software was not there. So we met some of the bureaucrats. So one bureaucrat says, "Are you mad? Where is our Kohinoor? Well, Tower of London.
Yes.
Where is this jewelry, Somnath jewelry, sitting here?" Like that, he went on. He says, the Britishers and the Mughals have looted us for so many years. Now it's our time to loot them. We must allow pirated software. So that was the mindset we were up against. Then another bureaucrat said, we don't charge for Mahabharata, Ramayana, all this. We give it free. We never charge royalty for Aryabhatta inventing zero. So why should they charge royalty or for the license for software here? So we should not stop that. But again, luckily for us, Mr. Vittal, for example, saw it that there's a huge value in terms of building the brand India to change the Copyright Act. He got the Copyright Act modified, added the word software, and over the time, he introduced criminal penalty for CEO. Okay, if your company is caught using pirated software, CEO can go to jail for 7 days. So Vittal said, we don't want CEO to go to jail. You just take him to the police station is good enough for us. We just want to create that fear. He must use illegal software. That's all we want. We are looking at that part. Finally, they settled down for 3 days. I don't think they ever put any CEO behind bar, but still. but that Copyright Act was at that time, and maybe still today probably, more stringent than the UK's Copyright Act. That's the starting of building India Inc. brand from that perspective. And then after the number of such things we did to build India Inc. brand, and again, the full chapter on it about how we build the India Inc. brand.
So as a part of your building India was, of course, you spoke about it, building NASSCOM, and you spoke about this thing. But NASSCOM is one body. What would you give an advice to other verticals, the industry verticals, when they form a body, what they can learn from NASSCOM, which we can sort of take forward to other bodies? So today, Dilip Bhai maybe represents the food and the hospitality industry. There are people from other industries. What advice would you give to somebody when you start a body like this?
Before I answer that, I would like to answer the first question, the Maverick Effect brand name. If you see the name, there's a Maverick Effect. Now, I call it Maverick Effect partly because some of those I just talked about decisions we took early, like Maverick would take, doing out-of-box thinking completely in terms of whether solving trustworthiness or whether solving building brand India and whatnot. And people were ready to take those guts. And I'll tell you some of the stories, what it means to be called a Maverick Effect. So when you have this, so let's say Mavericks sit together, and if there is the creative juices are flowing, how they solve an industry problem. So I'll tell you some stories about it here. In the early 90s, I don't know how many of you know, but most of the multinationals could not own more than, not most, MNCs could not own more than 40% equity in India. They had asked George Fernandez times, he had asked them to go. And then IBM left, Coca-Cola left and whatnot. So seeing our work in the late 80s by our industry, many of the MNCs came back to us and said, okay, we would like to leverage India's talent. So can we set up a back office operation owning 100% equity? Would NASSCOM propose this model to the government? So we said, let's study it. So we had a meeting. So someone said, "Are you mad? I mean, if you allow MNCs to come in, they'll take our people by paying double the salary."
Yes.
The business which we are doing with these MNCs, in the back of their, under the garb of back office, they'll take away our existing business and do it. So why should we allow them to come in? But because partly we had built this so-called trustworthy atmosphere in the group, and it was the openness we had created, where people, no matter who you are, you may be a celebrity or you may be a small-scale entrepreneur, you can speak up. So people started saying, so somebody said, yeah, but if we allow them to come, it will, we don't have real quality processes, all our homegrown processes. Correct. Now, competition is the best guru. So let them come in and we learn at Indian mistakes rather than learning in USA from those mistakes. It's better if we learn very earlier now.
Yep.
Then somebody said, we will learn all the quality processes from them. One is competition, second is also the learning from them. Correct. Because from every area, they were way ahead of us as a service provider. But then it's very difficult to give up protection. It's given by the government, naturally given. Who are you to go against that, Correct. Go against the tide? At that time, in the USA, there was a debate which said, who is us from the business perspective? Is it IBM, Whirlpool, Motorola us, or is it in those Japanese companies that made huge inroads, Honda, Sony, Panasonic us? The debate was going on. So we also learned from that, okay, who is us? Who is NASCOM?
Yes.
In that process, again, I don't know who, somebody said, whoever develops human capital of India is us.
Yes.
And who doesn't is not us. Will these MNCs develop human capital of India? Answer was very clearly yes.
Absolutely.
Very clear. And we said we must support them. We went around, we asked Mr. Kohli, Murthy, Azim, everybody, do you agree? Because we need to carry the industry. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to go to the government single-handedly putting forward. Everyone agreed. Okay, yes, we'll allow them to come in. So we go to the Ministry of Finance, met Mr. Dr. Manmohan Singh and his team. So one of the persons said, ईस्ट इंडिया की माफिक वापस देश को बेचने आप लोग आ गए. They just could not imagine. Here is an industry coming. Every industry wants full protection, and here is industry doesn't want any protection. And they are saying, you allow them to come in. Somebody said, "Aap kiske dalal ho?" Anyway, so we were ridiculed, and all that was part of the way it was happening. And then Dr. Manmohan Singh agreed to allow 100% ownership for MNCs. Now just imagine the creative juices that flew in the group with fierce competitors and solving industry problems, keeping India first, with single voice. All these parameters together is what I call maverick effect. And you can see the impact of that decision. Today we have 1,600 R&D centers in India, employing 1.3 million engineers, earning $35 billion foreign exchange. And we are saying in next, 7, 8 years, they'll go to 100 billion. And this 1,600 will become 3,000 R&D centers. Every R&D center around the world. Every large corporation would like to set up an R&D center, let's say, in India. Of course, Samir, you are from the industry, so you know all this. I don't have to highlight that part. But the maverick effect created that condition.
Sure.
Now, I'll give another story here. Satyam story. Sure. Unless you want me to cover later.
No, I'm sure you can cover. Sure, go ahead.
So when the Mr. Raju's letter came out in the paper, admitting his fraud, so Mittal, who was our president, he called a meeting of the CEOs of NASCOM. And we have an executive council, chairman's council. We all were on a call. And said, what do we do? The first natural reaction was, hey, listen, who are we to get involved in the individual company's affairs? It is the auditor's job. If they haven't done their job, Why should we get into it? It is the job of independent directors of the company. If they don't perform, who are we? And then ultimately shareholders have to be seeing those compliances are met. Who are again we to get into all that? But then again, as I would say that freedom of expression without being afraid of getting ridiculed internally in the group, somebody said that, yeah, but if Satyam collapses, they have Telstra of Australian telecom operator as a customer, they have this bank in Boston as a customer, and they're maintaining those applications. And if those applications collapse, you will have millions of their customers on the road. Just imagine today your HDFC account doesn't work. What happens to you? And so if that kind of message goes out around the world, nobody will ever give business to Indian company. And that was a real fear in our mind, that India Inc. brand will get such a big hit that we need to do something. So we told Satyam, we told Som, go ahead and put a proposal to government, okay, we can save Satyam or not. So right away Som meets Mr. Gupta, who was the corporate affairs minister at that time. He had called Kamal Nath and some other ministers. Same reaction from them first. Why should we get into it? If one company collapses, SEBI will come up with the new rules, regulations, more compliance will come, and X, Y, and Z. That's the natural way of doing it. But they also understood the impact on India Inc. brand. So they said, give us some time. They came back to us after 2 days saying, yes, we have agreed to take over Satyam. However, it will take us 45 days to clean up our entire way of taking over the company. See, for 45 days, can you guys keep the company alive? So again, some called a meeting. What can we do to keep Satyam running for next 45 days? Now, many of our members were keen to grab a business. Many of us were very keen to take away their senior people. A very natural marketing 101. When a competitor is going down, like a vulture, you attack and take away the best pieces and throw away the rest. But here, as a group, there was a collective wisdom which said, for next 45 days, we will not recruit any senior manager from Satyam, proactively. Proactively, we will not go after any customer of Satyam. Nowhere in the world, frankly, such a decision has been taken by the industry. Nowhere. That maturity is not shown by any industry. To me, that's the Maverick effect in action here. And then, of course, as you know, next day or 2 days after, we conveyed this decision to Mr. Gupta. They took over Satyam. Kiran Karnik was brought in as a chairman, and then Deepak Parekh, Damodar, and many others were brought in as an independent director. In another 2 or 3 months, company was saved, auctioned, and that time also, many of the NASSCOM members had gone around the world giving assurances to the customer. Okay, government, politicians, the bureaucrats, and the industry, all three are working together to save the company. You don't panic and go somewhere else. All that happened as a part of the process. So when this is called the Maverick effect. And so when I was writing the book, I realized the Maverick effect as a key message, essence of what we do. And I realized that this message can be replicated now to any other association. To your point,
yes.
What other association can learn. And the secret sauce of that NASSCOM is in the book. From that perspective, whatever I knew, I have put it down in terms of what we did, how we did, and so on and so forth. And it should be easier now for any other association. And by the way, it's not only within India.
No, I would agree globally.
Anywhere in the world, this Maverick effect model has a potential to impact positively.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. I know we are on time, and then we want to take some questions from the audience. So one just last maybe a minute where you can talk about, because we have a lot of young aspiring engineers, IT industries, entrepreneurs. So some little advice what they should look for from the technology industry and what you see in the technology industry in a minute or two, and then we'll open it for questions from the audience.
I wish I was your age. The future is so bright, so fantastic in front of you that completely, when we grew up, was a very different atmosphere. And today we have from AI to generative AI to robotics to you name it, biotech, all these different technologies, and all the convergence of these technologies is creating huge, huge opportunities. To me, it has a potential now to solve India's every problem, including poverty, education, healthcare, you name it. The permutation combination of these technologies will help solve these issues. Of course, some other parts would be required in terms cultural and whatnot, but the base technology is now available for you to go out and solve these problems. So it's a fantastic opportunity in front of you.
So I think we could say that you're born at the right time to take up the opportunity. Open for questions from the audience. So yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you and NASSCOM for enabling like the entirety of my professional life, right? 100% MNCs allowed me to work at Microsoft. I ran my IT company based on IT policies drafted by NASSCOM. And even here as a volunteer at Vidhabh Literary Festival, we use software which is sponsored free for NGOs by NASSCOM in collaboration with various software agencies. So thank you so much for everything that's been done. The question I have for you is, what do you think the next generation needs to do to take NASSCOM or equivalent behavior to the next level so that we can, how can we contribute to NASSCOM and other changes in the ecosystem so that people who follow us get the same benefits like the efforts you guys put in?
First of all, I am not representing NASSCOM here. I'm here as an individual who got NASSCOM started and involved and whatnot. And I'm a story writer, I'm a narrator as an individual here. But hopefully we have built the culture at NASSCOM and the DNA. Just to give an example, how much time we have?
So we can take another two questions. 5, 6 minutes.
Okay, I have 2-3 stories to tell. So one is, I talked about Maverick effect, where there is one of the key, ingredient is that no personal agenda. When the people discuss, they keep their agenda aside. I'll give one example. Again, this goes back to SOM. Our PMO had taken a delegation to Russia, where there was a pharma association and then there was a software association, NASSCOM. Both were presenting where export opportunities were there. Of course, pharma gave a presentation with their company's brands and X, Y, and Z. And our is a very different story. We don't allow companies to use their brand name in any of the slides and whatnot. So SOM had to give a presentation. He looked around and he saw Harish, who was the chairman of Accenture India at that time, and also chairman of NASSCOM. He said, Harish is here, Harish should give a presentation. So Harish looked around and he saw N. Chandra, who is now chairman of Tata Sons. He was a TCS CEO at that time, also in the group. It's the largest IT company of India. He is here CEO. So Chandra should give a presentation. So approach Chandra, would you give a presentation? So Chandra said, of course. But then there's one caveat. What is it? In this presentation, since it's an India presentation, there are 4 case studies of your competitors. Would you talk?
Yes.
And Chandra, without even blinking, said, yes, I'm speaking on behalf of India, I'll talk. So this is what I mean by no personal agenda. And that philosophy or thinking has to go deep into the group of people when they work together, keeping that as a higher good. So that story is in the book. So Mittal read the book. And he said, Harish, I had forgotten that story. So that means whatever I did at that point in time, I just did it naturally. So to me, that is the culture hopefully we've built. And it passes on from one generation to another generation, saying this is how the behavior should be. And hopefully my book also would partly say it has been a job of ours for the last 30 years from one generation of executive council members to next generation by telling all the stories which are in the book. Now it's already documented. So hopefully that stories will also help strengthen the future for NASSCOM. But still, that future to me has to be decided by the elected council of the NASCOM, the younger generation who are all going to be part of that. They are on the ground. I believe very strongly, and I tell that as an advice to all of you, don't listen to us too much. Listen to us critically. But none of us knew that generative AI will come. None of us. If we didn't know, who are we to guide you, your future? So you have to develop your independent thinking, critical thinking, and listen to us. I'm not saying no. But if things go wrong, don't blame us, don't blame yourself. It's a failure. Get up, learn, and move on. That would be my advice to all of you. So similarly, that generation, frankly, has to now drive the NASCOM model going forward, keeping the basic values of openness, integrity, transparency. Cannot be violated.
I have read the book, and I read it very recently. And in fact, I believe that though I have been associated with NASCOM in some other capacities with you as well, I never knew what your role was. And without any hesitation, I can say that Harish Bhai is the Bhishma Pitama of taking the IT industry, especially through NASCOM to where it is. Sir, from 100...
I always say, log aate gaye, karwa banta gaya. We played our role, but it is the whole generation of...
And when I was reading the book, I was comparing it to an association which we founded as VNIT Alumni Association. And the problems that you faced 30 years back, we continue to face now.
I know, yeah.
And then it's such a fantastic guide for anybody who is into associations. Read that book, you would find the solution. Sir, from 150 million to 30 billion, it's a long story. Where do you see in another 10 years?
No, I am extremely bullish, as I always say. I think technology is the solution for India's all problems. I would like every government department to call, instead of healthcare, health tech, edutech, bring it tech everywhere. Because such a powerful tool available in front of us today. And like AI, so one proposal we have given to government is that 200 million Indians should be trained in AI. We have 20 million organized workers. All of them should be trained in giving them an AI toolkit to improve the productivity. And we should develop in India 2 million high-end AI programmers, developers. So we become a global hub for AI development. So that would be our wishful thinking where India should be going going ahead in terms of because AI is going to impact not only AI but AI plus biotech, AI plus every area. All this is just going to productivity is going to shoot up like crazy. I'll do another story just before that. Just a story I remember. The impact of Maverick effect. One is, of course, we changed India, I believe. But how the industry benefited, that 15 years back, China wanted to compete with Indian IT industry. So, and they also saw the benefits of we creating millions of, our industry employs 5.3 million engineers. Plus, we earn foreign exchange more than Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, money goes in one account. In our case, money goes through hundreds of companies into millions of accounts. We ended up creating new middle class, which is going to be the backbone of Indian democracy going forward. These are not planned. They just happen as you are in the part of it. You brought in meritocracy. Like we have 2 million women as part of employment of IT industry. Now, these women are earning high disposable income jobs. So how they'll impact their children will grow up, how they'll contribute to their local community and the work environment. To me, a silent revolution is taking place behind, about the corporate governance standards we brought in, built India brand as a trusted nation. So like that, all those changes have been happening. So that, coming back to the China story, they appointed foresters as an agency to come up with a master plan. How they become number one globally in tech services. So John McCarthy, the CEO of Foresters, he told them, you cannot compete with India till you create NASCOM equivalent organization. He said, I have not seen anywhere in the world, IBM, Capgemini, Accenture, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, all sitting around a table, keeping India first, solving industry issues with single voice, blah, blah, blah. I have not seen anywhere in the world. So in order to beat that, you need to beat that model, or at least replicate that model. So that's the benefit of which we didn't know. But these are the kind of benefits the industry would gain. You avoided a major competitor joining the game, market, not taking away the market share. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just one question from my side, sir, by the end of it.
By the
sure.
way, yeah.
Works for me, no issue.
In a way, you have partially answered my question. My
Sorry.
question was precisely because due to this AI and everything, I myself being in a technological background, so my query is like, we don't move more into products. We are generally, as per Indian IT solutions, we are either into services or into some back office work. Why, is there anything
See,
that's stopping us?
if you look at the AI
The
stack,
infrastructure that you mentioned already existing, why are we still not focusing products as a, like, why India is not known for quality? It's just known for quantity still.
no, that's not true. But if you look at the AI stack, you have hardware, you have cloud, and you have LLMs, and then you have applications. There is no question we will rule the world on the application side. No question about it. We will be the major global hub for AI development part. Now, on the LLM hardware, there are challenges. So that's another part of the game that we need to work at. But open source based LLMs and the product works is happening right now. Who will succeed and when, only time will tell. But my sense is we're moving in the right direction there.
Young man here.
Sure, I'm Shailesh Thakur. I'm third year undergrad engineering student, sir. Sir, I wanted to know one thing. I was very intrigued with the name of your book, sir. Part of your talk, made me understood that this book is all about software, not all about, apart from the software and IT industry, what it has in store for me. Why should I, give me the few reasons, why should I read this book? Because I've came across for the first time, so yeah, I wanted to know that.
If you want to build new India, you should read the book. There's a full formula there.
Last question.
So just picking up on a bit of the discussion is, if you were to write Maverick Effect 10 years into the future, what would that consist of?
Maverick Effect Square. No, actually, I'm more focused right now, frankly. There's a chapter 14 in the book where I have identified structural problems of India. While we may get technology part coming in well, but we need to solve the structural issues. For example, simple example, we have the wild nexus of Lala, Neta, Jola, Danda. That nexus is corrupt, so corrupt, that it's like an invisible bus. He's killing the millions of people, including all of you, your aspirations. That has to be solved. So like that, I've identified structural problems of India are going forward. That also has to go in parallel. So I want to see conversation going in each one of that. So that's my first objective. And the second objective is he talked about that this Maverick Effect has a potential to change 8 billion people. So I want to explore that. So is it possible, doable, what is to be done, and how is to be done? So like in Bombay, in the Indian Merchants Chamber, they have introduced this year, they have annual Digital Innovation Award. They have introduced Maverick Effect Award this year. So it will help all the associations to now look at the Maverick Effect as a model and see how they can replicate, customize, personalize that recipe, and then build their own industries. So that's the goal right now, is to promote those two models.
Yeah, I think.
One question, sir.
Yeah.
The industry.
There is somebody here, no? What happened?
No, she's there. She's there.
Okay, right? So time-wise.
I took her permission. Without that, I will not do it.
Okay, fair enough.
Sir, as we know, everything has been moved to cloud, and there are players which are currently have a monopoly in it. So, do you see it is a threat for India in terms of data has been there acquiring for us?
No, I'm sorry. What's the question?
No, he's saying that because everything is moved to cloud, do you see a threat for data and data privacy in India, which is a big problem?
Because the players are from outside India and they have currently
No,
monopoly.
there are challenges. No, I will not deny that. But I'm sure there are ways to solve that also. We'll have to see how it. We have fantastic relations with around the world. We have full government support also. So all the facts, I would say, in case things go wrong somewhere, there are ways to solve that problem. So I'm quite comfortable right now from that perspective that no matter what kind of problem comes up, we will be able to find a compromise solution, something around that. Like we are the leaders in the good data protection, for example. We started that. NASSCOM announced responsible AI guidelines few months back. So we are taking leadership. It started the small steps because responsible AI is not an easy thing to do. But at least we're taking the first step and then we'll build on it.
So thank you for the questions. I think it is a pleasure that we could really have Harish Bhai here and listen to him. One of the people who not only worked for this but ensured that our country survives, and when we really did not have any foreign exchange, this industry really changed it. People will not know it, but if you do research, you will find out how this industry really helped the country really survives in the early 90s when we really had no foreign exchange with us. So with this, hand it over to Arushi, sort of take the proceeding further. Thank you.
All right, so let's hear a huge round of applause, everybody. Wasn't that a great session? But I'm sure a lot of us want to know more about what's to come and how we can look back into his experience so we can learn more for the future. And now I would like to call our patron Dilip Kamdarji to please hand this one of a kind photograph to Mr. Harish Mehta ji.